Laura, and Commerce. Okay, I'll get started with the
Awesome, thank
opening
you.
remarks, but I'm done. I'm sure we'll have a word back and we can get into the afternoon session. So we're back up on YouTube.
We're good to go, Mr. Chair, when you're ready.
Awesome. Okay, good afternoon. During a declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who are registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who've registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Danny Bellissimo, Laura Alderson, Neil Palmer, and Sophia Reddick. I am Michael Clark, and I am the panel chair. I am also participating electronically or virtually. All registered participants, unfortunately, will only be participating by audio. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considered applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that the request includes your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment, and in the event of an appeal, the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. We'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda, and where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. Where the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee, and the committee may ask questions and then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and the clock in the room will show, and we will make note of when you're reaching or have exceeded the 5-minute mark. At that point, ask you to please wrap up. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning issues here, not with construction or grading issues, or personal issues between neighbors for that matter. The applicant or agent goes first, makes a presentation to the committee of their application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised, in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals who've registered in advance, either in support or opposed to the application, will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent is given an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that are raised by the speakers, not to introduce new information at that time. And that will then mark the end of the discussion on the matter, and the application is then taken into committee for a decision. Does anyone, either panel or staff members, have any conflicts of interest to declare with respect to the matters before us on this afternoon's agenda? Okay, I see shaking head in the negative. Thank you. In that case, we can start off with the first matter of the afternoon. Item number 21, 29 RANWOOD Drive. It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 14 variances. Urban Forestry is looking for conditions 1, 2, and 5, 5 being a refusal. We have an arborist report. We have a planning report recommending refusal of the application. Forestry comments, letter from Councillor Nunziata, also asking for the application to be refused, and 2 letters of objection. And in the additional materials, the Transportation Department has advised that they are okay with the application from a transportation perspective. The applicant is Michael Gallo.
Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to bring to your attention that the area resident at 37 RANWOOD Drive is not present on the call. The area resident at 31 RANWOOD Drive is present on the call.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll hear first from Michael Gallo with a presentation, and I don't have any presentation materials, but maybe if we can get the application notice up on the board while he's speaking, rather than our friendly faces looking like we're on Hollywood Squares.
It's on the way, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Those of you old enough to know what Hollywood Squares was. Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Mike Gallo, agent on behalf of the owner. I apologize for not having materials here. I was under the impression that the application materials would be presented or would be available for me, so I apologize for that. But I think we can get through this without them if they are not available. Now, I understand that we are here facing a fairly contentious application. We're seeking a number of variances here and he is a developer who's developing this land, and he hopes to suit a new phenomenon within the marketplace, and that is families coalescing since, recent conditions basically have created a new marketplace, and he hopes to build a home that would allow this in the same neighborhood, or in this neighborhood. So I do understand that this property isn't well served by the way in which the numbers have been calculated for it, and it makes the application seem incredibly aggressive. And these numbers would scare me if I saw them without sort of pulling that kind of any context out of them. So I hope to shed some light on that. I also note that the staff report has suggested that we refuse the opportunity to revise the proposal. I would suggest that that's perhaps even a minor mischaracterization. I do appreciate the contact from the City of Toronto explaining the circumstance. What I didn't appreciate was the fact that it came to us on the Thursday before the Easter long weekend, and our deadline for responding was the Tuesday after the Easter long weekend. So all is fair, though. I think we can move forward with this, and I do even have an option for reducing the number of variances perhaps that we could do without having to recirculate. So let me get started very quickly. So realistically, I think
Sir, for just a second, and I apologize for mispronouncing your name, but I know people who pronounce it that way. But in terms of the merits, yeah, we see that in terms of, it is a corner lot. I'll acknowledge that. But if you're going to start telling ways you can start changing it now to make it go through, we are not entertaining extensive any changes on the fly if you're proposing to make that. So I'll just mention that at the outset.
Absolutely, I understand that. This is not my first rodeo, so but I think these are very simple.
And I'm saying at 14 variances, it is a corner lot, but we have the verbiage here from community planning that you said you decided not make any changes, whatever it is the case, I don't know, but just proceed. But you're not going to, don't start making changes here on the fly that aren't backed up by plans. Okay.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So in the end, basically, with the circumstance refusing, essentially the circumstances that have led up to this, I hate saying the word, but the pandemic had left my client in the process for a very long time. So his hope was that we could resolve this in a single hearing, but if we have to defer the application, given the city's current schedule, He simply can't afford to carry the property any longer. So we need to come to a consensus today. So if I'm not able to make strike a couple simply, like the idea being that we were willing to entertain just striking every height variance. I think that's something that we could address fairly simply. If
Okay,
you have objection to that, I won't bring it up again.
sorry, but if you're just saying you can propose what you want to, I don't want to cut you off. So it's simply remove. But if they, I don't know, if staff may have concerns if they're not backed up by plans, but if they can simply be red marked. But I'm just saying we're not here to redesign or have a discussion. It's not a charrette; it's a hearing. So
Understood.
if you want to
Understood
tell me
entirely.
you're prepared to eliminate variances X, Y, and Z, go ahead and do so.
Sure, we are prepared to eliminate all height variances, which are 7 to 9, strike them completely and just go for compliance there, as well as variance number 10, which has to do with the minor shifting of an air conditioner unit. If we can't make an air conditioner unit work in 6 feet, we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. So anyhow, I would strike 7 to 10 completely, and let me get started then.
Yep.
If you agree. So we're looking at the coverage. I think the elephant in the room really is the building length, the setbacks, and the coverage, which, you know, kind of feels like just about everything. But I think we need to characterize it. Essentially, what's happened here is there's a storage area under a sizable deck at the back of the property. And that is creating a significant issue with the building. The deck itself, because it is greater than 5% of the area of the property, it has to be included in the coverage calculation. In this case, we have gone as far as 12%. Now, the reason behind that is that we see an exchange taking place there. This is for a storage area that is immediately underneath a deck, an unused piece of land, typically in these type of conditions. But because that makes up a main wall, which is underneath the deck, so not impacting the neighborhood, the length of that deck has been included in the length of the building, the depth of the building, and the rear yard setback. If that were not a main wall, if that were not a basement wall, it would not be included in those numbers. Now, and if the deck was less than 5% or 5% or less, it would not be included in the coverage area. Now, what we're proposing here is a storage area basically under a deck. That storage area only sits about just under 1.2 meters above established grade, whereas it is replacing what would be considered a shed or an accessory building in the back of the property, which actually has a height restriction of 4 meters if we were to go to the back of the property line. So my thought is that we are offering storage on a sizable building in the backyard in a way that won't interfere with the neighbors, in a way that's far less impactful than a deck. So I feel that there's justification for considering that and looking at the length and the coverage from the perspective of the building itself, all other features of the building except for that rear deck. And if we were to do that, we look at the coverage and it actually reduces the coverage to just over 41%, which isn't that unusual for the neighborhood. It also reduces the length of the building to 21.6 meters, which also is fairly sizable, don't get me wrong, but it is not unheard of on the immediate street or in the neighborhood alone. And so I look to properties in the neighborhood. Now, these measurements have all come from Toronto maps from the zoning bylaw. If we look at properties at 27 Langside, 11 Ranwood, 10 Ranwood, 40 Ranwood, we will see that the coverage of those lots ranges from 40% to 50%. And that's just the buildings alone. It does not include the sheds and things like that because those elements aren't actually plotted on Toronto maps. So looking into those, I found that a great many, including, let's say, 10 Ranwood, has a 10 by 20 shed as well as a concrete deck behind it. 27 Langside has a shed as well as having the entire backyard covered with concrete. So what we're proposing here, although it does, because it has that rear wall, produces numbers based on the fixed method of calculation in the official plan. The numbers are overstated. My perception of context is the visual experience of a neighborhood and the experience of living within a neighborhood. The extra area and length, which is, I believe, 66 meters squared for the deck and an extra length of 4.83 meters, really isn't visible from anywhere in the neighborhood. It simply doesn't it isn't included in the neighborhood experience. So my feeling is that this really doesn't speak to the context of the neighborhood. The way this has been described by the numbers doesn't do the design justice. And I understand that. I don't wish to point, shortcomings out or anything like that. I just merely state that this is a unique circumstance where I feel our client and the architect have
Mr.
tried to
Chairman,
innovate.
at your discretion, the client's clock is at 7 minutes, but that also includes the intro with the striking of variances.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, you can please wrap up, sir. And
absolutely. So I just jumped to the exterior side yard setback very quickly. I would note that 10, 16, and 18 RANWOOD, have front yard setbacks, and 23 RANWOOD all have front yard setbacks of ranging from 5.67 to 4.99 meters. Which is comparable to our setback, which is only to a second floor cantilever. And then with regard to the exterior side yard setback, the home immediately across the street, across RANWOOD, has a 0 side yard setback to a picture window, which wouldn't be included in the numbers. So essentially it's 0.6 meters. And the other two lots, kitty corner, are 1 meter or less. Anyhow,
okay.
I respectfully request that you consider these options or these matters and seek approval for the variances.
Okay. Thank you. My comment, thank you very much for that explanation, and that's that presentation. My comment is, it looks from reading while you're speaking, I'm looking at the neighbor's letter, the planning letter. So you've explained away a lot of, the excess length and depth and some other issues based on the particular circumstances of what counts and doesn't. But if I was when you received that, I know it was only April 25th, don't you go back and sort of point that out to planning and get them to issue revised, so they understand what you're coming from, because otherwise you put the committee in a position of knowing, really he's not at 51, he's at whatever number. But in order to test the veracity of what you're saying, and then for the planning department, neighbors to know, okay, so we know it's not X, but it's Y, and is that acceptable? That's, as you see, often we have, if you've been watching this application, a lot of times we get highlighted, revised applications that have been gone back and forth. And I know it takes time, and time is money and all of that stuff. But how do I know now that what you've explained will satisfies? You're asking for the committee to read between the knot lines, which is, I guess, what we do. But anyway, thank you for that explanation. Let's go to the, does anyone have any questions for the agent before we hear from the one neighbor, the neighbor right next door? And we have a letter from that neighbor that I'd like to get on the board.
Danny Bellissimo has a quick question. You indicated in your presentation the numbers are skewed because of the deck and the storage unit underneath that. Did you ever provide numbers, what they would be if that was not included?
Michael, please don't mute or unmute yourself. Let city staff be responsible for that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, am I unmuted now? Yes. Okay, apologies for that. So I did just provide numbers. I had not provided numbers to that effect to the city, although we have a breakdown of where the numbers come from. Now, we did discuss these matters with the planner at the time, and he discussed that, he would be happy to explain away certain things, but if we could reduce the intensity of the variances in other ways, or explain away in the same way that I am mentioning it. We had discussed these matters. They just simply haven't come up in the staff report. I did have 2 lengthy conversations.
No, sorry, I think you're misunderstanding my question. I'm asking you, do you have information for us, the committee members, that would justify what you're saying, that it's the storage unit or room at the basement that's making all these numbers look really high? And
Absolutely.
I was wondering, had you come up with numbers saying that if the storage unit was not included, these would be the variance impacts? You don't have that information, correct?
I have that information, actually. We didn't break it out specifically in that format because the city is not going to read, the city typically doesn't read theoretical statements on drawings, right? They want us to revise it such that it's accurate.
Again, you're
but on the second page of the architectural drawings, there is a breakdown of the site plan that shows exactly which areas are included in the calculations. You'll see a drawing on the second page. It follows the site plan immediately. There is a breakdown of the length of the building and the areas right there. So if we go past the site plan right to this drawing, the lower drawing there explains all this, at least the calculation behind this. It explains the numbers there.
Sorry, I can't follow that. So I think I'll ask the question just one more time.
Sure.
What I'm asking is, do you have a variable percentage or number that would tell me that if that storage unit was not included in the calculations, what the numbers would be?
I do right now, not in writing before you for the actual
Okay,
percentage.
so you don't have it for your presentation. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see. That is something that's usually explained in the staff report. They'll say, well, I know he's at 51%, but if you take off that, it's really all underground. It's really 41%. But that was never, as I don't want to repeat what I said earlier after
Sure, I understand.
that wasn't seem to me to go back and explain that to community planning and for them to say, yeah, he's right. It's not as bad. And I sort of look at it by looking at your plans next to the next door house and hope it's not, and you are a corner lot. That's I think what Mr. Bellissimo and I were trying to get at.
I do understand that, and I just was trying to point out that it is there. They asked for it, and this is how we provided it. It was deemed acceptable by them, so I apologize for that.
So let's hear from the neighbor at 31 RANWOOD, Ms. Kolanka.
Yes, speaking. Wow.
Mr. Chair, bear with me while Joanne is logged in 3 times, so bear with me while I try and find the best account to use so there's no feedback. Go ahead, Joanne.
How much?
My name is Joanne.
One more here attempt. Go ahead, Joanne.
We oppose approval of the requested variance.
Mr. Chair, would you like to give me a moment here while we can fix this up? Joanne, I've noticed that you're logged in on 3 different applications. I suspect maybe even as many as 3 different computers. If it's possible to log out of 2 of those right now and just use the one, that's why we're getting feedback right now because of that issue. Mr. Chair, members, and Joanne, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove 2 of the accounts under Joanne's name that are on the attendees list, and we'll leave 1, and then that should be able to get us around this problem with the feedback. Okay, go ahead, Joanne.
My name is Joanne Kolanka, and my husband and I live at 31 RANWOOD Drive. The property beside the subject property. We have lived at this address for over 35 years. We oppose the approval of the requested variances at 29 RANWOOD Drive because of the following. The intent of the city's zoning bylaw is not maintained, as the 14 requested variances indicate proposed dwelling coverage of 51%, far exceeds the maximum permitted lot coverage of 30%. Join your analysis, please.
Joanne, have you concluded your statement?
I'll keep going.
Oh, okay. The intended purpose of the city's design zoning bylaw is not maintained, as the 14 requested variances indicate proposed dwelling coverage of 51%, which exceeds by the maximum permitted lot coverage of 30%. So it's 51%, not 30%. Also, the vehicle access to a parking space on a corner lot must be from a flanking street. The proposed vehicle access is from the street on which it fronts. If approved, this would directly impact our mature Norway maple tree at the front of the property. As well, we do not want to have the Norway maple removed, and it falls under the city's private and public tree bylaws. The maximum permitted dwelling length is 17 meters. The proposed dwelling length will be 26.46 meters. This will impact our silver maple tree in our rear yard, and we are very concerned about the major damage that will be caused in it during the excavation. This tree also falls under the city's private and public tree bylaws or the tree protection program. The front, side, and rear setbacks and dwelling length and depth all exceed the permitted amounts under the city's zoning bylaw. Our freestanding wooden garage, whose south wall is located near the lot line between our properties. It will be impacted by the excavation. What will be done to protect the structural integrity of it during excavation? If approved, these variances would result in one mature tree having to be removed, as well another severely damaged. This would reduce the limited amount of trees closely located on our streets and further reduce the city's tree canopy. In conclusion, the zoning bylaw is meant to maintain a level of balance to the makeup of homes constructed within the city. These variances, if approved, will negatively impact the quiet enjoyment of our property. It also negatively impacts the immediate neighborhood by drastically changing the dynamic of houses currently on our street. Thank you for letting us comment on this application.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Kolanka? And if not, we'll go back to the agent for his rebuttal.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the resident for what they have to say. The concerns about the trees are quite real. And the proposal does propose the removal of the tree at the front of the property. In discussion with the client, I think they would be more than happy to provide a replacement. With regard to the tree at the back, we have hired an arborist who hopes to, or who will, offer recommendations regarding the root structure. I do note too that there are some structures, the garage that she discussed, interfering with the drip line as it is. So once we excavate, we will see what the actual condition of the roots are down there and take appropriate measures. The arborist will be with us throughout the process. So it isn't our hope to destroy the tree at the back of the property, not by any means, and we will take whatever measures we can to fix it or to ensure it isn't damaged, or ensure the damage isn't fatal anyhow. That being said, there's also concern regarding the excavation. I know that isn't necessarily what we cover here, but I would like to assure the resident through the chair that we do intend to take all measures necessary by the building code and the City of Toronto to ensure stability in the excavation, whether that be a sloped excavation or shoring. The client will do as is necessary to ensure it doesn't collapse or cause any damage. That sort of a collapse is dangerous to the people working on site as well as the neighbor's building, and we do take measures to ensure that's not the case. With regard to the other comments, I defer back to my original perception of the building and of the property, and suggest that given the precedents noted, it's not well served by the numbers. And in fact, the building itself is in line with these other precedents that I've noted. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any remaining questions for Mr. Gallia or for the neighbor, Ms. Kolanka, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready to weigh in for motion. So there's no further questions.
Yep.
I've carefully read the report from planning and the comments from the councillor's office. In particular, the planner noted on April 25th that the application proposes the largest lot coverage, and that's not gross floor area, that's lot coverage, which is on the ground, the largest length and the largest depth, not only in the immediate context, but in the broader neighborhood. And it's the broader neighborhood that concerns me. The planning has looked at this very carefully, so I would like to move for refusal of the variances.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo, for that motion. We refuse the application, not the variances, but your motion is to refuse the application in its entirety.
Yes, the application is entirety. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, I just wanted to add that while I see the need for redevelopment of this site, I believe this is an overreach and an overbuild. So I'm happy to second that motion.
Okay, and I just want to stress, as I stated before, if in fact Mr. Gallia, reputable agent, is accurate in what he's saying, it was incumbent upon him to point that out rather than just come here and say, oh, don't worry about those variances, I'll take out the height, and the remaining still 10 variances are, not well served by the numbers, he said, because, and I agree with him, but he can't just lay back and present that the day of the hearing. You got to get community planning to concur with that, to let the neighbors know that something's not being done that looks as bad as it looks. So all in favor?
We can only make, motions based on what's before us. So
Exactly. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. The application was unanimously refused.
And I do want to make special mention of the neighbor's presentation. I thought she was excellent.
Yeah. Mrs. Kolanka. Okay, thank you. We have to move on. Next application, relatively simple one it looks to be. Item number 2230 ASHMOUNT Crescent. It's an application for a second story east side addition. There are two variances, height and soffit height. We have nothing before us other than 2 letters of support and another letter of support in the additional materials. The speaker is Michael Carlos, the owner of the property.
Yes, hello.
Hello, welcome. Mr. Carlos, I don't believe we need a presentation from you. Was there anything you'd like to let the committee know, though, before I see if they have any questions for you?
No, I did prepare a statement, but if you don't need a presentation, then...
Okay, if you'd like to let it, if you'd like to read your statement and how long it is, but very straightforward. You have a point less than half a meter in height, and in soffit height, a little over a meter. No one's here in opposition. There's no conditions from Forestry or anyone else. So rather straightforward.
Yeah, if everybody's okay with it, then there's no need for me to present.
For sure. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Carlos? And if not, is someone ready to weigh in?
Danny, this is a quick question. The soffit height, is that related to average grade, or how's the grade determining the soffit height in this proposal? Or is it?
I think it was the average grade.
It is the average grade. Okay. And that's quite typical in the area?
Yes, because it is a sloped area. So one side of the house is about, I'm going to say 3 feet higher than the opposite side.
Okay, that's what I thought. It has to do with the slope of the ground, and that's what impacts the soffit height. So the soffit height is an issue in one side, but not the other side. Okay. So if there are no further questions by the members, I'm ready to move.
Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, yeah, I find that the variances are minor in nature and move for approval of the variances. I believe no conditions.
Thank you. Seconded for that. Ms. Ruddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Carlos.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, the next application is item 23, A, B, and C, 4668 Dundas Street West. It's an application for consent to sever the property into two undersized residential lots. The existing dwelling will be demolished and the property will be redeveloped, the site of a new detached dwellings on each side, requiring variances that the zoning bylaws set out in applications B and C. And it looks like we have and in those applications there are looks like five variances for each. We have an arborist report, memos from engineering and construction services. We typically do on consent applications. We have conditions of approval from Heritage. We have opposition from 4670 and 4668 appear to be construction-related concerns. Planning is recommending refusal of the application. And Urban Forestry looking for conditions 1 and 2. Okay, the speaker for this application is Michael Flynn. Welcome, Mr. Flynn.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Surviving.
Good.
Okay, so we have planning is asking that this application be refused.
Yes.
So you have 5 minutes to make a presentation.
I understand from what you just said that there was letters of objection, but I haven't seen them on the AIC. So I don't know what that is about.
Well, it looks like maybe there's it looks like it's they look to be construction related.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we can address them after my presentation.
Look like, yeah. But anyway, you have please deal with the planning issue rather than neighbors' construction.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to reiterate that development engineering has no objection, and they have asked for a dedication of land along the frontage of the property for future widening of Dundas Street, which we have agreed to, and we've revised our plans accordingly. So, Urban Forestry actually doesn't have any objection, but they are making it subject to conditions, which is fine. We've already made the application to Forestry, and I think it is up on the AIC. We have no objections from neighbors except for the ones that you just mentioned, and we have no objection or comment from the councilor. So, if we go through the planning comments, I have difficulty relating their comments to the actual facts in this case. They seem to suggest that this is an unusual and not in keeping with type application. However, that's not true. There are 18 consent decisions within 500 meters of this property. And there is a list of those properties up on the ARC. But if you'd like me to go through them, I could do that for you. But the bottom line is that this is in keeping with what has happened over the last 10 years. Each of those consents that were approved also contain minor variances that were associated with them. What we're proposing is actually quite modest. The two homes are modest in scope. Each of them has 5 minor variances, but each of them is minor. And I mean minor. They're very minor. So I would suggest that the planning should have no objection to the actual minor variances, and yet they did not ask us for any changes. This application's been in the process for 2 years, partly because of development engineers' request for the dedication, which required us to do a whole bunch of new things. But it took a long time to get through the system, again, because of the COVID emergency. So I would suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, that even though these variances are relatively minor, they are larger than they would have been had there not been this land dedication to the city.
Okay.
So that we started out at much smaller numbers.
Okay,
So we don't have any unusual variances here, and as a matter of fact, in a consent application, it's typical for there to be 13 variances. That's the usual number. And it starts with lot frontage, lot area, and goes from there. But I don't believe that planning is actually very in touch with what's going on this application, and I think they've missed it.
Okay. I can see the clock. Can you arrange so I can see the clock or someone? Is Mr. Flynn at his 5-minute mark yet, or because I'm blind?
Mr. Chairman,
4 minutes.
Yeah.
He has another minute. Oh, it seems long.
If you could tell me what the neighborhood objections are, I would try to address them too.
Okay, Mr. Flynn, I told you I just saw something in construction. Where's the elephant in the room? You're talking. It says very clearly in the report. They're saying your lot frontage is inappropriate. What are you saying? They're talking about variances. They have a problem. Their last 2 paragraphs of their letter, right at the end. That's where I always scroll to the very end of the letter. Planning staff.
You're talking planning, okay.
Not approval.
Well, again,
hold on a second. The proposed severance and resulting would allow for 2 undersized lots that do not respect the physical character, et cetera, they specifically say are much narrower than the prevailing character of the surrounding area. Okay, it goes on. What do you read this?
What they say about that?
April 25th, but it's very clear what they're objecting to. They say the lot frontages are inappropriate, sir. Read it.
I know what they're saying. I disagree with them.
Okay, but you're glossing over it. You're glossing over it. Prove to us. You just said something. You just said something about something up in the Information Application Center about a lot study. I don't see a lot study. Do you see a lot study? Did you submit something within the?
I think it's called supporting material.
I don't see that. I don't
3 of them, and it's there. Well, it starts with 4617 Dundas Street West, 4619 Dundas, 4655 Dundas, 4667 Dundas, 4655 Dundas, 4667, 67B, 67A, 4672, 4673, 4674. That goes on a couple of times. 4676, 4678.
What are you reading from, Mr. Flynn?
This is it's listed as supporting material on the AIC.
Did you submit that?
Yes.
Bill, you submitted because I don't. Anyway, all I'm saying is you're right. You have a negative planning report, so you come to committee and you show on a little map to committee members that they're mistaken. In fact, the lot frontage is appropriate, and you show them on a map. But I don't see anything before us. I don't know if the other members do. Anyway,
there's also a map on the AIC.
That's all I have to say. Anyone else have any comments for Mr. Flynn?
Danny Bellissimo has a question. I also do not see any supporting material, so I'm a bit confused where you're reading it from. But my question is, normally in an application like this, the planner or the applicant goes around to ask neighbors and talk to neighbors and get support. Did that happen? Hello?
Did you hear my answer?
No, did not hear your answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's something going on with this system.
I heard nothing. Sorry. I just wanted to know if you went around. Yeah, was there any support for this? I don't see any supporting documents or letters or any indication in your presentation that you talked to the neighbors or your applicant.
We did put out a letter of introduction and explanation.
Yes.
We spoke to some of the neighbors. Nobody presented an objection to us. So planning did not object verbally to us.
But there's nothing here, since I'm missing the other document that you were saying we should have received, there's no supporting petition or any supporting letters from anybody you talked to.
I normally don't do that, sir, because I think that I'm not sure what the right word is, but in many cases, and I've done hundreds of cases, as you're probably aware, including one directly across the street from this one.
Sorry, you're misunderstanding my question. My question is, am I missing any information here, yes or no?
Yes. But you're not missing letters of support.
Okay, there's no letters of support that's in the presentation. I thought,
no.
That's what I wanted to clarify because other things seem to be missing, as the chair alluded to. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
you got a negative report as to lot frontage. This is a consent. You've done hundreds of applications. You're one of my favorite planners that comes here. So how do you tell me you don't come with me? Oh, there I say you're showing, but you show it on a map. But if community planning tells you that your lot frontage committee refuse this, not 9 meters is not appropriate, refuse it. And if you don't do it, you could be changing the fabric of this neighborhood, starting a process that could change it for the next 100 years. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe not. But the committee,
that's why I provided the map.
The committee deserves to know from you, sir, to rebut that statement from community planning that the lot frontages are not appropriate. And that doesn't mean talking to neighbors. That's just showing on a map, rather than just making a list of numbers, what that is. That's all I'll have to say. Any other questions?
And just to clarify, Mr. Chair, that material was just uploaded today, so it was late. That's why it's not included in your package.
Okay, but there is no lot studies, it's a list of addresses. So I know it's only came in April 25th, and I can't comment on that for a May 5th hearing, but you just don't ignore the elephant in the room. So obviously, I don't think I have a problem with the variances. They have a problem with the lot frontage, and they say that right in their report. Anyway, anyone else have a question? Someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'm ready to weigh in with a motion.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Reddick.
Motion to reject this application. I don't find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the 4 tests.
Thank you.
Concerned about the planning, concerns about the lot frontage.
Thank you. Okay, any seconder for that motion, Ms. Alderson? Any comment? Or if not, we can vote. All in favor of the motion to refuse the application? Okay, unanimous, the application refused. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was for all 3 applications, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the consent fails, the minor variances obviously fail alongside it. Next application is again another consent to sever. Items 24 A, B, and C, 287 Valermo Drive in parts A and B. It's an application to consent to sever the property into substandard lots and to build on each of the sides a pair of semi-detached properties, each having variances to the zoning bylaws. And we have the standard engineering construction services memos. We have a planning memo back in 2021 not to be scheduled, but other than that, I don't believe we have anything. And I believe there are 11 variances on each of the sides to be proposed to be developed as a pair of semis. The applicant on this application is Arlene Beaumont, agent for the applicant, and as well we have the neighbor from 5 Goa Court present to make submissions.
Mr. Chair and members, before we go into this item, can we just double check? I have the area resident on the call, but during the mic check, we couldn't get a confirmation of voice. Do you mind if we just do a quick check right now to make sure Agnes is present and can speak?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Agnes, go ahead. You're unmuted. Just say hey. Agnes, you're unmuted. Go ahead. Mr. Chair and members, Agnes is unmuted. She is present on the call, but we can't hear her, as you can note. Do you think maybe we defer or step this item down for 1 or 2 items while we get Agnes to properly connect?
Okay, sure. We don't have anyone else present on this application, I guess.
Correct. Just Agnes is the only area resident.
Okay, let's hold that one down then, and we can move on to the next, which is Guess we had 3 in a row. So
Thank you,
25
Mr.
A,
Chair.
B, and C.
Agnes, if you could
25
log out and log back in and make sure you authorize the use of your microphone, we'd like to have you get a chance to speak today. So again, log out and log back in and make sure you authorize the use of your microphone. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to item number 25, 24 Windsor Road, application again to sever the property into 2 undersized residential lots and to construct on each side of 2 new detached dwellings with attached garages requiring variances to bylaws as set out in parts B and C. And each requiring, I believe, 8 variances to the bylaw, including the lot area, but not the lot frontage. It was my note. Urban Forestry is looking for conditions 2, 3, or denial in 5. And in the additional materials, we have a denial memo from them specifically. And the speaker for this application is Alex Sabanu, agent for the applicant, and as well we have 3 neighbors registered to speak on this application.
Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to bring to your attention that the area resident at 71 St. Andrews and the area resident at 69 St. Andrews are both not present on the call at this time. The area resident 17 Windsor Road is present at this time.
Okay, so we'll hear from him after we've heard from Mr. Sabanu. Okay, Mr. Sabanu, and we have, I see your presentation materials up on the board. On the screen, rather.
Go ahead, Alex.
Hold on a second. I guess I didn't finish presenting this. I believe community planning has a condition of approval to construct as illustrated in architectural plans regarding front yard setbacks. And we have letters of opposition, 11 letters of support. In addition, the engineering and construction services memo, a couple of cover letters, including an applicant's presentation, which a good segue is up on the board. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Sabanu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, my name is Alex Sabanu. I'm a land use planner with Bowes Fields. We also submitted a planning rationale that does speak to the appropriateness of the severances, the severance and the variances. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so the site is located in Kingsview Village, which is northeast of Kipling-Dixon. If you can go to the next slide, please. I think what's interesting about this site, Mr. Chair, as you noted, we do have, of course, a variance for lot area, but we do not have one for lot frontage. And that's because prior to submitting the application, we did a lot study of the surrounding area, and you'll see some of those studies in a moment here. And out of all the lot studies, approximately 400 of them, the frontage that we have on this site, which is 27.5 meters, was in the top 1 percentile of frontages in the area. So it is a very, very large site in terms of frontage. If you can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the proposal in front of you today, so we are proposing to sever the lot into 2 and to construct a new 2-story detached home on each that would be pretty much identical. And one of them is to be used by the father of the existing owner. Just in terms of the process, so prior to submitting the application, as I said, we did this research, got some lot data information from the City of Toronto, analyzed it to confirm the appropriateness of severing this property. We then approached planning prior to making the application to discuss it with them, and they did agree that this was a lot specifically that is appropriate to be severed. We then made our application. We had a number of variances. We met with planning staff. They noted some, what I would call relatively minor concerns regarding GFA, coverage and front yard setback. We then accommodated those comments. We resubmitted the plans, and those are the plans in front of you today. And again, to planning staff, they do have no objections to this proposal. We also reached out to our neighbors, went door to door, and you will see on the AIC, we do have 11 letters of support. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we do have variance to lot area. So with respect to the severance, so each lot will comply with the minimum lot frontage of 13.5 meters, as you can see someone on the image to the right. So in terms of the frontage, it will be in keeping with the bylaw and also the existing character of the neighborhood. Regarding the lot size, in our letter, we do go into a fair amount of detail about kind of the eclectic nature of the lot sizes and configuration, but knowing that I only have 5 minutes, I'll just summarize and say, while we are less than the bylaw minimum in terms of lot size, it would be in keeping with lots in the surrounding area. And you can see some of the studies that we did in terms of existing lot areas on the image to your left. The size of the lots would be imperceptible from the street. And I think the main thing is that they are large enough to accommodate the proposed buildings, which have been designed specifically, taken into consideration the size of these lots. So this wasn't a situation where we had a home and we were going to put that home on any lot size. We knew the lot size and we designed the home to be to respond to the context of those lot sizes in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So regarding the front yard setback, so the way the bylaw measures setback is it takes the average of your neighbors, but they need to face the same street. So to the north, which is to the left, it's off page, that home actually faces St. Andrews. So the bylaw then requires us to take our setback from that home 20 Windsor to what is the south. I will note that the existing building on site does not comply with this setback. It's actually setback 9.7 meters. So the proposed dwellings will actually improve this condition. Part A, we're proposing to set back 10.03 and Part B 9.2. And the reason why we have Part 2 closer to the lot line is that planning staff did request that actually, because as you can see, if you look at where it says 11.8 meters moving north or to the left of your page, 11.3, 10.8, we see kind of a cascading of front yard setbacks, and planning staff wanted to see that type of street wall condition be improved upon. So that's why we have the difference in the two. Next slide, please. So regarding coverage, a very minor 1% increase over the bylaw maximum of 33%. We also reduced this from 35% as requested by planning staff throughout the review of the application. Next slide. Regarding height, again, very minor, a 26 centimeter increase over the bylaw maximum of 9.5 meters. And in our opinion, it doesn't cause any undue impacts to our neighbors. Next slide. I know I'm going close to the 5 minutes here. In terms of density, just very quickly, we had reduced the density from 0.61 to 0.59, and that was, again, requested by planning staff. In our opinion, well, not in our opinion, it's actually, this density variance does not cause numerous envelope variances like side and rear yard, building depth, landscaping, and as I said, a very minor 1% increase in lot coverage. So the next slide, I'll close up by just
Mr.
saying,
Chairman, we're at 5.5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, just in closing, we reviewed the staff reports. We have no issues with the conditions. We did our research before and during the process. We reached out to our neighbors to elicit support and share the plans, and I'm happy to answer any questions you or the neighbors may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and the lot study frontage analysis or whatever is similar, but what I would like to see, doesn't have to be as fancy on the last application that we just refused to refute what planning was saying. Okay, so anyone have any questions for Mr. Semenu? If not, we'll hear from the one neighbor we have present to speak. 17 Windsor, Richard Ross.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, so I'm Richard Ross and I live at 17 Windsor Road. I was looking at the plans. I'm sorry, I'm at work right now. I'm looking at my telephone, so I'm kind of cross-eyed looking at all your little your words on your papers there. But my concern was the variances that was put in place, particularly the setback of the house. And I think that's been addressed now. I understand obviously the reasons to maximize the amount of home you can get on our lands being as expensive as they are. And that house was not bought too long ago for about $1 million at the time. So I mean, I do understand that, severing the property is a good idea in the sense that that lot is certainly one of those lots that are large enough to be severed. In keeping with, I guess, the styles of the homes and the neighborhood and everything, of course, that's important to us. we all have larger land sizes because it's veterans land from way back when. So, I mean, we'd like to keep them as large as we can, but we understand the need to get into higher densities, especially with the impact and the problems of the housing situation in Toronto. The other thing I had a concern was, and it seems to be minor, but there seems to be an awfully large driveway for each one of these residences that is proposed. I mean, today we have like 6 cars on that lot, if I'm not mistaken. The next door neighbor also has about 5-6 lots, or 5 or 6 cars on their property. It's getting to be very packed, and obviously there are more people living in the home that are of driving age, and perhaps more families. I don't know, but I just know that there's causing quite a bit of problem, as I see, as we're getting congestion of all these cars in the area. And I noticed the driveways being accommodated that way. In fact, that land on that house itself was redone as far as the driveway, and I don't know if it was ever allowed to be done, to be widened to such an extent that you could put 8 cars in that driveway. I'm afraid the same kind of behavior will take place even if these 2 lots are being severed with these larger driveways. I'm concerned about that because that is not in keeping with our laneway sizes in terms of our normal driveways in the rest of the street or on this block, if you will take a look or care to measure.
Did we just lose the speaker?
It appears that way, Mr. Chair, yes. Ross, were you done with your presentation? Or Richard, were you done with your presentation? Also, Richard, please don't mute or unmute yourself. Please let city staff be responsible for that. Mr. Chair, members, Richard is still on the call and he is unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Listen, so I just want to know, did you have any comment with regard to what I just said with the actual size of the driveway?
When you finish your submissions, the agent will respond to your concerns. We do not comment.
Okay, well then that's all I had to say.
Yeah, okay, so he'll respond to your concerns, and thank you for your, we'll see if committee members have any questions for you. No questions for the speaker? Okay. In that case, let's go back to Mr. Savanu for his response to Mr. Ross's concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. I believe you did also submit a letter of objection, and that's something that we did review as well prior to the hearing. And I guess if I could respond to a few items, it seems as though Mr. Ross doesn't agree that this is that this property is appropriate to sever. And his concerns are more in regards to the driveway. I understand what he's saying in terms of the existing condition. If I had an aerial, the existing driveway is, I believe, 7.5 meters wide, but then there is a parking pad that does extend, I believe, further north. So the amount of paved area on the site is existing is quite expansive. And actually, the proposal proposes 2 very common 6-meter wide driveways with no parking pad. So if anything, in my opinion, it is quite an improvement over the existing condition, and we're not going to have properties with massive parking areas. The width of the driveway at 6 meters, again, is something that transportation looked at and have no issues with. And I specifically looked at the context of driveway widths along Windsor, and in terms of the immediate context along the west side of Windsor, and it's absolutely in keeping with the character. Typically, the bylaw does permit 6-meter driveways. It's quite common. And as I said, the one on site right now is 7.5 meters. So while we are going to have 2, generally speaking, the width is decreasing, and there will be no parking pad. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Thank you. I'm calling that a parking pad to the top right hand of the image there. I think that pretty much addresses his concerns. Again, I mean, it sounds like we're in agreement that a severance and new dwellings on this site is is appropriate. And I think that we've mitigated any type of issues with the driveway as well. And again, an improvement on the conditions. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, follow-up questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bellissimo is ready for a motion if there's no further questions. First, I want to thank the presenter. Such a great presentation. It makes our job so much easier when you see aerial photos showing the houses next to it, zoning lot coverage drawing, which showed just a 1% increase. So I applaud him for his extra work and making our job easier and easy to comprehend. So I'd like to move for approval of the consent.
Okay, well, we'll do it all together, I
And
guess.
the variances, yeah.
Yes, all together. Thank you.
Okay, the consent, yeah, you cut out, it's consent and the two variance applications. And I saw Ms. Ruddick put her hand up. Second that motion, all in favor? Unanimous approval?
Wait, we have conditions.
Yeah.
Are you imposing any conditions?
Right, okay. There's urban forestry,
Urban
2-3.
forestry conditions. Thanks, Barb, for reminding me of that.
Engineering and
And
construction.
planning conditions too.
Yeah, the planning condition with respect to the construct is illustrated, and
Yes.
also the construction and engineering services standard conditions of approval for consents, and within the whole consent approval to the time limits and all of that. So all the standard
Yes.
conditions.
Thank
And
you,
also,
Barb.
and also transportation conditions, which I think is under the same umbrella, but
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I got too excited about the presentation. I forgot about the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Okay, so the matter has been seconded then by who's Ms. Ruddick, and now it's been unanimously approved with all those conditions included. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanyu. Okay, the next application is item number 36, 39 Edenvale Crescent. It's an application for two-story front and rear addition, a new front porch and a rear yard deck. There are 5 variances. We have an applicant's presentation. This matter was actually deferred from the January 13, 2022 hearing. So we have an applicant's presentation. We have a planning condition of approval to be constructed as illustrated on the architectural plans regarding the proposed building length and the height of the flat roof. And we have all the materials from the previous hearing back in January. Arlene Beaumont is the only speaker, is the agent. She's actually also the speaker on the matter being held, item 24, A, B, and C. And maybe we'll do that one if we found the other speaker.
Good idea,
so
Mr. Chair.
First of all, 26, yeah, on item number 26, Arlene Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So as you mentioned, this item was deferred from the January 13th meeting at the request of planning because we wanted some time to adjust the building length. Planning was not prepared to support anything in excess of 19 meters. We are now down to that 19 meters. So our variance has been reduced a little bit, and all the rest of the variances are exactly the same as what you saw in January. So if you could just go to the next slide, please. I think I covered that. So next slide. So this is the existing dwelling as it is today. I just wanted to point out there is a concrete I'll call it a deck or a balcony above the garage. It doesn't have a railing right now, so I don't think that the homeowners are actually using it as a balcony. But the front of the building is being extended. The front of the second floor is being extended to the edge of that concrete deck. So it will match up with the garage. So that's the front addition is just coming out to the edge of that concrete. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
We're just having a bit of lag. Continue.
Okay, so this is the proposed modified dwelling. So it's being redone inside and outside to sort of just renew it. Next slide, please. And the site plan, the grade-in areas show the extent of the front and rear additions. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the existing front yard setback to the garage is 15.29 meters, and the proposed front yard setback is 15.29 meters because we're bringing that second floor out to match up with the front of the garage. It will still be located behind the adjacent dwelling at 37. And there's a variance for encroachment of the new front porch. Again, that's related to the existing front yard setback. The front porch will be flush with the front of the garage. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the length of the building has been reduced to 19 meters. There's also a variance required for the length of one of the parking spaces that are interior to the garage because the homeowners are adding an elevator. The elevator is going to take up some space, thereby reducing the length of that one parking space. And I've illustrated that on the next slide. Next. So the yellow highlighted area is that substandard parking space. Next slide, please. So we also require, the final variance is for dwelling height. That is required only under the old Etobicoke zoning code because under that code, if 33% of the roof has a slope of less than 2 to 12, then it's considered flat. Under the new bylaw, we do comply with the height because there's a different definition of flat roof. So we are considered a sloped roof under the new bylaw, but a flat roof under the old bylaw. So we need a height variance under the old bylaw. We do meet all the requirements under the new bylaw. And that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, and you're okay with the planning condition tying your length and the flat roof height, which is explained to the architectural plans.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for the agent or someone ready for a motion? And you're okay with the urban forestry 2?
Yes.
Great. Any further questions or a motion?
There's no questions. I'm ready for a motion. And the variances requested are minor in nature, so I'll move for approval, subject to forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. Second for that.
And sorry, and tying it to that planning condition as well, tying it to the plans of March 5th, 22 regarding length and flat roof height.
Thank you. Seconded by Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimously approved. Danny, you're okay? I don't see your hand up. Thank you. Unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Beaumont. Don't go away.
Thank you.
Don't go away. Let's see if your application item 24 A, B, and C on VALERMO, if the concerned neighbor is online or not.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take care of 2 tasks in this moment if I could. The first task is to confirm I have a new call-in user that I don't have a phone number I can identify on my registered attendees list. So I'd like to see who that user is. Maybe it is our area resident. So I'll do that first. Call-in user on the phone number 416-835. You're unmuted. Can you identify yourself, please? Call-in user 416-835. You're unmuted. Can you identify yourself? Mr. Chair, they're unmuted and I can hear them rustling about.
Yeah,
they don't
that's
care.
not the prefix. That's not the prefix that I have on my attendance sheet in any event. So I don't even know where Goya is in relation to this. It's around the corner.
In the meantime, well, let's try. So that was just a random call-in user that I wanted to try and identify. Agnes is still logged in under her name originally, so we'll bring her up and see if she can speak now. Agnes, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
Perfect.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, Agnes, before you go any farther, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
We're going to hear from the applicant first, Ms. Goya. So I see where you are. You're on the court right behind 5 Goa courts. So stay tuned. We're first going to hear from the agent, make a presentation on this application, and then we'll hear what your concerns are. I see we do have another letter from 285B Valermo. And we have the planning. Okay, I had a concern about, yeah, Ms. Beaumont, when you make your presentation, do we not have anything from planning? Because back in October 6, 2021, we have a one sentence memo saying staff recommend this application not be scheduled in order for the application to consult community planning. Well, that was back just before Halloween. So it's been a long time since then. So if you can touch base and let us know if there's been further contact with planning. And otherwise, why don't you make us give us a short presentation on this consent to sever that I already introduced. I'm not going to do it again, but you can consent to sever the property and build two semis, pair of semis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have been in contact with planning, and we did actually take their comments into consideration, and we did revise the plans. So we have reduced quite substantially the lot coverage variance as well as the height variance. We have also reduced the gross floor area variance, not as substantially as lot coverage, but we did have a reduction. So I believe that's why planning has not commented. So the plans you were looking at were resubmitted in early March. As you mentioned, we're looking for a severance to build two semi-detached, and we need lot area, frontage, coverage, GFA, side yards, height, setback to a deck, driveway width, and parking space in a front yard. All the variances, I believe, are very much in line with others that have been approved in the neighborhood. This neighborhood's undergoing quite a lot of rejuvenation right now, a lot of older homes being torn down, severances, new builds, that kind of thing. And from our review of previous applications that have been approved in the neighborhood, our variances are in line, maybe a little bit on the high side, but still in line with what else has been approved in the neighborhood.
Okay, so I'll take it then the variances that appear before us are the ones as revised, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Beaumont? Or if not, we'll hear from the neighbor in the little court right behind. You can see on where she is on the location map. Okay, so welcome Agnes Mikalski.
Yes, hello everybody. Hello, Mr. Chairman, sorry. It's my first time on this.
Looks like your line up, your like key lot situation that this house lines up with 1, 3, 5, and 7 and 9 along that line. So the flankage of that street faces your rear yard, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So this house is going to be like a skyscraper to me and my neighbors as well, because it's not just a regular semi. It's almost 17% higher than the semi that they just built next to it, to the east of it. So it's also they're trying to squish in two semi-detached buildings on a lot where there are two very big, beautiful oak trees. They're like 20 meters high or so. And they're going to have to get rid of one of the oak tree in the front yard, which is really bad for the environment and the whole street, how it's going to, impact the environment, and people will be, it won't look nice at all to have this high semi building, like I was saying, 17% higher, taller than other buildings, and they're they're detached houses right in the area, a new complex of detached houses, and I just think that this semi-detached house, both of them are going to just really stick out like a sore thumb, really, like being so much, 17%, over 1 meter higher. That's quite a bit. I think that's significant. And, they're going almost double the times of the area of the lot. So the maximum, as per section 3, the maximum actually section 4 gross area is 0.4 times the area of the lot, and here they're applying for 0.87 times area of the lot, so that's double. I don't think that's a minor variance. I mean, it just seemed to make it sound like minor, but you know, going by the numbers, it doesn't seem minor at all. So it just seems like they'll be squishing in 2 semis on the lot, which is really meant for a detached house, because largely because it's smaller, and because there are these 2 really big mature oak or maple trees in the backyard and in the front yard as well. So, you know, I spoke to all the neighbors, and none of them are happy about it. They're actually quite upset. But some of them are elderly, and they're not brave enough to go on this meeting and or are working. So I've spoken to many neighbors, and if you like, I can get a letter from them, and I can compile all that. Pretty much everyone is very displeased with these variances. So sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. It's first time I'm on kind of this meeting like this, but thank you very much for hearing me. And
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Just point out that Urban Forestry is looking for conditions, but conditions are not looking for a denial on this one, as they have on several of the other applications before us today. They're looking for conditions 2 and 3. Also, I'd like to ask Ms. Beaumont to, in her rebuttal, to just respond. There is a height variance of a little over 1 meter. However, you did mention, and we know there are other new builds on VALERMO, including consent and severances, and how it matches up to the heights of those newly built, as opposed to whether it was going to be higher than the other new builds or not. So let's turn it back over to Ms. Beaumont, unless someone has some questions for the neighbor. No questions for Ms. Mikulski? Then let's go back to Ms. Beaumont for her rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm looking at a variance that severance that happened on 272 Beta Street back in 2019. They had lot coverage of 42% approved. That was much higher than what we're asking. A GFA of 84% and a height of 8.82 meters. I am looking at another one on Treeview Drive. They had a height, that's in February 2020, a height of 8.27 meters approved. I think that's all I have for height. I'm sorry, I don't have the ones.
There's some recent.
Yeah, 287 VALERMO.
Yeah.
Was a coverage, again, 41.6%, much higher than what we were at, than what we're asking for. And 422 VALERMO, a GFA of 0.86 and a height of 8.08 meters. On Beta Street, again, July of last year, height of 8.38 and a gross floor area of 0.78. So again, very much in keeping with what we're talking about for this application. I did want to just, I'm sorry, I didn't address, you mentioned the letter from 285B. I did speak with that gentleman this afternoon or earlier on. He is going to email me his survey. I'm going to forward that to our surveyor, and the surveyor is going to look and see where the 2 surveys are, where the discrepancy is between those 2 surveys. So we are going to try to work with that neighbor and figure out what the issue is there.
Okay, yeah, that's a private legal matter. I would say that doesn't impact really what we're doing here. Okay, does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Beaumont? So thank you for addressing particularly the height comment, and you have to agree with it. In a key lot situation, it's obviously there's more of an impact than in a straight lot situation. So the impact of the neighbors on Goa Court, that's just based on the placement on the lot. The key lot. Does anyone else have any questions, Ms. Alderson? Sorry, I see your hand up. I wasn't looking.
Yeah, that's okay. Since you mentioned 285B, I'm wondering if you can tell me what height differential is between those 2 properties. your proposal and also 285B since it's directly adjacent to it.
Let me just take a look here. Sorry, excuse me for 1 second while I just check the plans.
No, that's okay. You've used a lot of examples, but you haven't used the most obvious one, which is right next door.
And I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I
So
took over this.
I'm going to assume that it's taller. Your proposal is taller than these two semis.
Potentially, yes. I don't know. I can't confirm that.
Otherwise, you probably would have used them as an example. Okay, thank you.
And those are new builds, Ms. Alderson, or older?
Relatively new, yep. Right directly beside it. There are two semis directly beside the property in question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, by the way, I'm at a very low battery, so if I got cut off, I'll just call back on my phone because it's draining my iPad faster than we're recharging it. So I still have 10%. Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready for Mr. Bellissimo?
Danny Bellissimo has a question. Could the staff put the drawing 82.02, that's the elevation, on the screen? I just have a question of the applicant. It's the elevation A2.02, further down. Okay, that's it, I think. So my question is, the heights are based on the frontage of the house, and they include the parapets, correct?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
And did you know why the parapets have to be so high? Is it a slope roofing condition? They're excessive in my mind, but I'm just wondering why technically those parapets are so high.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question that way. I don't know.
Okay. And the ground level at the back slopes down. It doesn't say how much. Do you know how far that grade? See the bottom there? It slopes towards the back, right?
Yes, it does slope towards the back. We should have a calculation of grade somewhere.
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify this because there's no height numbers on the back, so I'm assuming all your heights are at the front. And I just wanted to point out, can we go to the drawing before that, A201? That's the one before that. And so those parapets, they're just in the center part, the higher parapet. You actually have two parapets, a center parapet and an end parapet at both of the semis, correct? Is that just an architectural feature? Is that why? Because that impacts visually on the height, right?
Yes, it does. I think it's just an architectural feature.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready to weigh in? Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, I'm ready for a motion. I'm concerned about the character and built impact and massing of this proposed semi-detached two dwellings. So I'm going to move for refusal of the request to sever and of all the variances.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? If none, do I have a new motion?
I will second Mr. Palmer's motion based on the height. I'm concerned about the height. So
Okay.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion for refusal, yes.
Okay, second, all in favor of the motion to refuse the application? Oh, so hands are up. Okay, it carries 4-1. I will dissent. I believe it's a supportable application. We didn't hear from community planning. So motion carries. The application is refused. Ms. Beaumont and Ms. Mikulski. Thank you. Okay, so we can now move on to item number 27. That's where we were at. Item 27 is again a Item that was deferred from the March 10th, 2022 hearing. We're now into the rest of the afternoon is all deferred items, previously deferred items. So 1331 Martin Grove is an application to permit landscape and parking deficiency to facilitate their operation of a place of worship. There are 9 variances. We have a site plan with no changes to the variance, and that's all we have. The speaker is Joshua Sukra.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Welcome. I just did an introduction, so this is for relief from parking and landscape requirements.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Planning was advised after this matter had been deferred that it could be rescheduled. What else has anything changed since the last time? Please summarize, tell us why this matter was deferred and what has gone on since that, why we're back here.
Okay, so hi everyone. What happened is that I was going to come in on the 10th of March, and Mr. Timur, when he looked at why we were coming in, he said there was no reason for us to come to Committee of Adjustment because we were approved a few years ago already for all of this, and we have 65,000 security deposit with the city a few years now. Unfortunately, we are just a small church and we couldn't afford to finish the whole parking lot or the landscaping. And so I asked Sabrina for some time, and Sabrina told me I have all the time. The only thing that the longer I take, the longer I'll take to get back my security deposit. And when we were ready to do the project, the pandemic actually was there and we couldn't do very much. And then finally, recently we asked again to get the project done, but then there was somebody else by the name of Joshua said that he would refuse that all approval. And that is, he said we have to come back to Committee of Adjustment to get it done. And that is why we came back here. So Mr. Timur, I think he's committee planning, he told me that to go in for a deferral because he wanted to make sure that everything is okay, because we didn't need to go back for a new approval. The old one was still good for us because Sabrina told me that it wouldn't expire or anything. And then he asked this new person that is working on our project to let us go with it because it was already approved, but he didn't want to. I begged him, but he didn't want to. He said, "No, you have to go back."
Okay, sir. So are you here because you have a letter of credit or a security deposit with the city for landscape works that you want to get back?
No.
The city sitting with a deposit for you. I'm actually. Let's see if staff staff. This matter is deferred. It's set to consult with community planning, and didn't seem to say anything else. He just checked the minutes. So what's happening here? Is this? There are 9 variances here. These deficiencies. We have a position from community planning, other than the fact that it could be scheduled.
We have nothing more than that. There was a deferral request for the previous hearing and then just that email.
Yeah, it wasn't clear what that deferral just says consult with community planning. So I'm getting from Joshua that he isn't, like nothing's happened since this matter was back deferred not too long ago, but so this was deferred back from March. It's now 2 months later, and the variances are all the same, exactly the same as they were last time, correct? 9 variances, nothing's changed.
Yes.
Okay, if no one's objecting, there are 9 variances, landscape parking deficiencies. Looks like no one's complained, so let's see if committee members have any issues or approve the application. you know, it's,
Danny Bellissimo has some questions.
okay, go ahead, sir.
So, two questions. You've been in operation for how long now on this site? Just to clarify.
I think we didn't, I think about 15 years or so.
So you've been there for 15 years, and then I noticed here in variance number 5 that you're required to put 68 parking spaces on that lot. This is more educational for me and maybe other members. Do you know how that number came up? Why you required 68? That's just a zoning requirement based on lot size, or
that came up as a result of when the new person took over that we were trying to get the job done. He said that we fall under the new bylaw and he's not going to bother to worry with the old one that we were already approved for.
Right.
So he wanted to put us through the new bylaw. That's why we have all those variants, because this was approved a long time ago, a few years ago.
No, I understand that, but sir, I'm just referring to the parking spaces. So let me tell you what I think here. You're required 68 parking spaces. Given the configuration of the lot, you're only able to provide 54, and you've almost filled the whole lot, except for one section of the building on the other side, which is a strip of grass and part of the front. So you're sort of caught between a hard and a rock place. Like, you have to provide parking, at the same time you have to provide landscaping, and you obviously, place of worship, you need parking is important, obviously, and the city is asking you to do that. So, I'd like to move for a motion if there are no further questions.
Sure. Just to point out, I found there is in our materials, it was converted from industrial building use to a place of worship back in July 2017, so about 5 years. Not 15.
Sorry, Michael, you faded out. How long was that ago?
No, we bought the building. I think, no, it was not 15. I think we bought the building way before that. 2013.
Okay, all I'm saying is we have an application 2017 to convert the industrial building use to a place of to allow the place of worship use. So if that's relevant, well, it's been 5 years.
Thank you, Michael. That's 5 years.
Yep.
Yes.
So go ahead, Danny. You're about to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move for approval. I think there's one of those situations where, you know, you have a function, a service, zoning allows the use, but and then he got stuck with this need to provide parking, but he can't provide parking, and then because of the parking, even though it doesn't meet the parking, he still can't provide landscaping, and landscaping seems to be the issue that keeps coming up in most of the variances. So I would like to move for approval. I don't believe there are any conditions, are there?
No, and there's no negative planning report before.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, and they said it could be scheduled. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? Ms. Alderson, you're opposed? You're in favor or you're opposed? The minutes.
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. So motion carries 4-1. Application is approved. Thank you, Mr. Joshua. Anyway.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 28, also a previously deferred item. 65 Grandview Boulevard North. It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 7 variances, 4 letters of opposition. We have the materials from the previous hearing. Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1, deferred from March 10, 2022. And we have letters of opposition are from right next door on either side, 67, 63 Grandview, and from 86 and 90 the Kingsway. And we have a registered to speak, Antonella Wild, the agent on behalf of the applicant, as well as the neighbors at 67 and 63, both of who wrote in, and the neighbor at 90 who also wrote in.
Mr. Chair and members, I'd like to bring to your attention that the area resident at 90 the Kingsway is not present on the call at this time. The area resident at 67 and 63 are present at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll have for the 2 neighbors right next door and the 2 neighbors behind, we are not, but we do have letters from them here in our package of materials. And so let's hear from Antonella Wild.
Go ahead, Antonella.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Okay, So good afternoon. After receiving the original hearing date, I reached out to community planning with time to make changes if the proposal was recommended. They had no comments or concerns at that time. However, when we received feedback from the neighbors, we felt it necessary to look more closely at the proposal. And so based on their feedback from the original proposal to now, the variance for coverage was reduced from 42.1% to 33.2%. The front porch and rear walkout landings were included in error in the original calculation. We further removed the storage room below the rear porch, also eliminating this area from the coverage. When you compare the footprint of the proposal to the adjacent neighbor, you see that it matches 63 Grandview and many others on the street in the length and width. 63 Grandview also has a walkout landing. The next variance for a maximum gross floor area. We revisited that, and the entire third floor was included in the original calculation. So, by the zoning examiner, a roof truss structure would render the attic space impossible to use as a biddable space. So the actual variance is as you see it now, which is 150 square meters plus 48% of the lot area, or FSI of 0.8. I have many examples of similar proposals granted, but the closest of which is actually 62 Grandview Boulevard across the street. They were granted 150 square meters plus 47.5%. We have one Kingsway Crescent was granted 150 plus 52%. 52 Strath was granted 150 plus 62%. Not all of them had an FSI. So 52 Strath's, their FSI is 0.86. And at 29 Kings Garden, their FSI was 0.88. Because we removed the storage below the porch, we removed the variances for length and depth. There was concern about the number of variances, so quite a few were removed. The other variance for side yard setback of 0.61 and the setback to the rear porch of 0.61. You see from the map, the proposed house matches the existing setback to the north. And when you look at my site plan, and you see the dashed line of the home to be demolished, and you compare it to the home that is being proposed, the setback is identical. And so that means that the impact to the street remains unchanged. But having said that, the setback of 0.61 and even less is very common in the neighborhood. I found many, many examples, the closest of which is 23 Grandview at 0.41, 62 Grandview at 0.89, 47 Grandview at 0.6, and I have another, almost dozen other examples. Same thing for Eve's examples. So then I'll miss those for now. Then there's the height to the flat roof, and the fact that it's a 3-story structure when 2 stories are proposed. So although more than 50% of the roof is flat, and the roof is sloped to the street at both the front and the rear, and presents as a sloped roof, the variance is numerical in nature and appears greater than necessary due to the math. It is consistent with the prevailing character of the 3rd-story dormers in the area. If you stand on the front lawn of this property, you will see at least 8 examples of 3-story homes, and that doesn't include the existing house on the subject property to be demolished. I have 21 examples of past approvals in the neighborhood. I won't go through them all, but the closest is 62 Grandview was granted 9.87. 66 Grandview was granted 9.8. I have some as high as 10.25. I have one here at 11.2. The driveway width variance due to urban forestry's concern for the tree was also removed. We believe that the variances requested are necessary to construct a home that is in keeping with the trends in the area, and most specifically on the street. They match the massing and style of the street, as I said, in the 2.5-story dormer style that you see all next door and across the street. I look forward to hearing the speaker's presentation, and I hope to alleviate their concerns. We did leave a letter in everyone's mail, knocked on their doors. We didn't receive any immediate feedback, but hopefully we can do that now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wild. So yeah, in the minutes, this matter was everyone wanted to defer it to councillor. I think there were 10 variances. There are now 9. You've gone through the changes that have been made. It was to make new notice to be okay. So anyone have any questions before you move on to the 2 neighbors? We have both the adjacent neighbors present. We have their letters. Perhaps we put their letter up while they speak. So the first neighbor we'll hear from is Cliff Hacking at 67 Renview.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. First of all, there would be proposal that we received the letter is inaccurate. We received no letter from the builder or from this lady, this Wild. So I just need to clarify that. I'd go on to say that you know, the builder here is not looking to live in the area as many other people have done, but rather with a motivation of pure profitability. And you know, profitability is great as long as it's not going to negatively impact others. We're not concerned in the least with the increase in height, the 3rd story. So we understand that, and we're supportive of that. But we're very concerned about the setback on the side. The setbacks that that Ms. Wild referred to for other properties don't cause those properties to abut the building beside them. They have driveways in many cases in between and provide sufficient area for both water and snow removal and drainage. And we are really concerned about the fact that, and you saw the picture that was there a minute ago, of both the drainage and the snow removal down between those 2 houses if that house is moved even closer. In addition, you can see in that picture a couple of trees there beyond the shrub. Those trees are, you know, 18 and 20 feet high almost now, and they have weeds or sort of roots that abut. One of them is actually right on the property line, and the root system will go right over to that building and are likely to be destroyed as a result of the building. So our primary concern is that side easement, and we object to that. I'd go on to say that you know, has been involved here, and this house has been vacant for more than 2 years. We're into our 3rd year now of this situation. Had to be, you know, I had to personally call enforcement to get them to cut the grass last summer, which was almost 2 feet high, and they did, and they enforced it. They did not shovel their snow throughout the entire winter, creating a hazard, a slip hazard for anybody in the neighborhood walking down to the subway, including my family. There's been a blatant disregard for any of our concerns. And so that's the principal concern. We're also a little concerned about the back setback and want to make sure that it doesn't go back farther than the current buildings do, so that it doesn't block light or planting or other vegetation that we have out there. Those would be the things that we're most concerned about. And I would point out in the previous submission that Councillor Grimes had offered some concerns and objections to this as well. I don't know if he got this notice or if he just didn't get time to respond, but Councillor Grimes was also opposed to this particular proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions, members, for Mr. Hacking? If none, we'll go to the neighbor on the other side, either Ms. Lee or Mr. Dingley.
Mr. Chair, members, in this case, will be Ms. Lee.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, and perhaps we can get their letter up on the board too. Thank you. Here we go.
Okay, I just wanted to back up what Mr. Hacking just said, which is that there was no letter left by the owner or his agent throughout this whole process. The only thing I received was a hand-scribbled note on graph paper on the evening of April 28th, which was actually the deadline for us to submit this latest letter of objection. So if there was a door-to-door visit, it would have happened too late for us to have our concerns addressed personally or issues explained. So this is why we're here, because we actually never really had an opportunity to have a discussion with anybody related to this property at all. And I'm quite sensitive to the fact that we're at this stage, because as noted, my husband and I just rebuilt our home right next to number 65. So we're very aware of both sides, the need to preserve the integrity and beauty of the Kingsway and not overbuild, while at the same time needing to build certain things that will accommodate, in our particular case, our aging bodies, basically. This is our forever home, and maybe our concerns are about keeping neighbors happy, played into this whole process that we went to make sure that everybody was informed, consulted. And we did do door-to-door canvassing and a thorough research and had no letters of opposition. We also had letters of support, in fact. Now, related to Ms. Wild's points about other three-story homes and the heights, the excessive heights they needed, this proposed property will be a little higher than ours, but it's also on a 40-foot lot like ours. So while it's one thing to have a three-story home that is excessively high on a 50-foot lot, it is quite different to have it on a 40-foot lot. And the examples that she brought up would tend to be 45 or 50-foot lots. So they're wider and therefore would look more in keeping with the proportion of the lot. As for the setback side, that is a concern for us as well, because we had understood that the reason some of the side setbacks were so narrow at the current 0.6 meters, which is actually half of what is the minimum required, is that this was grandfathered in from the original property and the development back in the 1920s and 30s. And so anybody who was looking to renovate their property, could build on the existing foundation. But our builder, our architect said that when you are building new, then it is seen by the Committee of Adjustment as an opportunity to rectify that situation, and that it should be set back again to the original required minimum of 1.2. And this would, of course, be helpful because we did that, we complied, and we have a 1.2 meter distance between our property and the one next to us. It would be nice if Cliff had that too, especially given his concerns about how big this property will be next to his and the laneway between his property and the new one. And my other concern, and I'll wrap up because I know there's a time limit, aside from everything else I addressed in my letter, is that our first letter asked about these views as proposed by the plans. And we have now done our own measurements, and we see that their main floor mudroom would look directly into our dining room, and the second floor bathroom window of the new property would look into our second floor study, which is not desirable for them or for us, especially if the builder does intend to rebuild, to immediately sell it, which seems to be the case, and any buyers would not really appreciate that. So, those are the main comments I would make today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Lee, or if not, we'll send it back to Ms. Wild for her response, and particularly why you couldn't comply with better on the new build side yards than what you're proposing to do, and just in terms of the changes. Go ahead.
Okay, hi. Sorry, I want to first start by apologizing. I'm getting my properties confused. No, there was no letter. Pat Damiano did knock door to door. He did speak directly to Cliff, and he left a note with his phone number to call, which would be great. And there's always an opportunity to talk about the windows on the side with Ms. Lee. The setback, so this, and also just to talk about Cliff's lilac bushes, etc. I believe that the builder spoke about replacing them or making sure they're not damaged. They're not obviously bushes protected by urban forestry, but definitely they like to be neighborly and replace those. The scale and the overall massing of the proposal is no different than 63 Grandview Boulevard, and it is a recent build, as you know, and it replaced the home. I can understand that they were revised, they were consulted to take the 1.2 meters, and that's happens all the time that we, in this neighborhood, as I said, with a dozen or more examples of 2-foot setbacks, that people do that. There will be no windows on that side. It won't change the privacy of that neighbor on that side. Again, I spoke with community planning twice because it is difficult to know what is going to be the point of contention if we can have a talk directly. And both times they showed zero concern because it is in keeping with the development. I mean, we talked about a 40-foot lot width versus 45. You can't tell that from the street. The massing is the same. If you look down the street, they're all 2.5 stories of the same height. And in fact, that is why it slopes front to back. Like if we changed it ever so slightly, the roof slope might be slightly different, but then we might comply, for example, as a fully sloped versus that flat portion. The difference is something like 6 inches over the allowable 9.5 meters. My client wants me to apologize for the lack of care of the site. The site manager that was currently there has been replaced with this reputable builder with years of experience in the neighborhood. He's already left his phone number, as I said, to all these neighbors, and he will ensure that the site is kept clean and safe and made available for any issues. This was definitely something to apologize for. And the owner wants to build a beautiful home, and he wants to build it with the highest quality materials and workmanship. And we feel that it will fit in seamlessly with the charm and the beauty of the street because it's definitely something that should be maintained. We believe the variance is to be minor, and the proposal respects and reinforces the character and massing and size of the street. And as I noted in my presentation, all the variances are less than or match past granted variances, dozens of examples. This is why community planning felt no concern for this, and we believe it's appropriate development for the immediate neighborhood, and we believe it meets the general intent of the bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wild. Any follow-up questions for Ms. Wild or either of the two neighbors who spoke, or is someone ready to weigh in with the motion?
Danny Bellissimo has a question for the applicant. Could staff put on the site plan? It's a revised site plan. Just have some questions related to that. That's March 31st, correct? Yes. Okay. So my questions relate to the lack of, in my mind, this sensitivity on side setbacks, and it has to do with the setback at the top here. And that's one of the variances, the 0.609 setback. Yes. And the covered porch. Both of those, covered porch is too close to the setback, side setback, and the building is too close to the side setback. What would be your opinion if those variances were not approved?
My opinion? Sorry,
yes.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you if I put a motion forth to approve all the variances except for those two side setback variances.
Well, we certainly can step the covered porch in 2 feet, and it wouldn't impact on anything. I mean, certainly, we would like to. I mean, they have their walkway there. They're over 8 feet away from the property line. You see, so in fact, even just the distance house to house. However, going back to your question, my client seeks approval, but how can I can text him? Do you know what I mean? I can't, and I guess what I'm saying is I can't necessarily answer that question without.
Okay, that's fine. No, I was just asking because I have some issues with the side setback there. I think is too close given the height of this building, and I think the covered porch is insensitive to put it too close to a neighbor, and that neighbor at 67 may come back to us one day and want to have a bigger building there with a setback that respects it, irrespective of the fact that they now have a walkway there.
I definitely can say that my client would be happy to move the covered porch over 2 feet. If I'm texting now, he hasn't answered, but that one I'm quite certain he'd be happy with.
Okay, thank you. I'll let the other members comment as well.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comment for Ms. Wild, or is someone ready to weigh in? Got three. I'm gonna have to log back in after this application on my phone. So is someone ready for a motion?
Let me try. Danny Bellissimo, since no one else is weighing in on opinion, I would like, if we're allowed, to approve the variances 1, 2, 3, 5. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7, and not approve variance 4 and 5. Those are two side setbacks at the one end of the property.
Okay, and as well, subject to the conditions, what do we have here? Urban Forestry 1.
Yeah, whatever conditions, that's fine with me. It's just my concern is the side setback. I think it's insensitive to, and the design is insensitive to about a neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Mr. Bellissimo, if I may. Should you consider variance 6 then in that regard as well, because that's for the eaves on the north side?
I think, I could be wrong, maybe staff could voice their opinion. I think what happens is that the eaves then was pushed back as well automatically because the wall goes back. The eave doesn't concern me as much. I just assuming that they don't want a long overhanging eaves there. It makes architecturally expensive undertaking for the structure.
I think in each case, the meter is 0.1 of a meter off from what's permitted, right? So 0.1 of a meter is, you know, whether it doesn't really matter if you leave it, I would think, or if you want, unless you want as your friendly amendment to take that out too.
No, that's fine.
I'll be agreeable to that if that comes through, sure.
Okay, we'll add that as well, that we'll remove variance 6. And
they should be able to comply.
Did you move it subject to forestry condition 1, I believe?
Michael mentioned that, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the application is unanimously approved as modified with the elimination of variances 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you. And I did get a response, and my client is happy to do that as well.
Thank
you very much.
As well, and thank you to the neighbors as well. I hope they're satisfied. They're still on line in terms of understanding what's been done. The application has been approved without the side yard variances.
So just so the applicant is aware, that includes the side yard setback for the house, not just the porch.
Correct.
I'm aware, Barb. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more applications. I'm going to just quickly log off and log back in. If someone, Barb, maybe you can introduce this one while I'm doing that. Thanks.
Sure. The next application is item 29, 2987 Weston Road. George Taxitis should be the agent. This was previously deferred. On filing of the previous minutes, planning is recommending a refusal, and there are 4 form letters in support.
Members will just hold tight until the chair comes back on.
Hello.
Hi, Michael. We can hear you.
Okay. How far did you get?
We've
The
done
agent
the.
is- the agent is ready to go, George.
Okay.
There's no one else online.
Right. We only have one speaker, George Taxidis. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is George Taxidis, and I'm the agent for the owners, Anna and David Frigoli, at 2987 Weston Road. Our proposal is for the construction of a one-story side addition to an existing one-story dwelling. This addition would be, the purpose of it would be to replace an existing garage, attached garage, and house some additional living spaces, including stairways to the lower level, new stairs to the lower level. To accommodate these and ensure the functionality of these spaces, the proposed addition would need to be a specific size, and based on these requirements, this would result in a slightly longer and wider structure, and thus require a variance to the zoning bylaws as noted in the zoning review. So specifically, as mentioned just now, the length and I guess would be the main issue with one of the main issues, I guess, with this proposal, as we'd have to stretch it beyond what is allowed, which would affect the front yard setbacks and again the length and depth. So for the positioning of the addition, we moved it slightly forward, which affects the front yard setback, which goes beyond at the front, I believe, by about 0.2 meters. Sorry, no, that's the side yard. Front yard, 0.36 meters beyond the front yard, the allowed front yard setback. We did stagger it slightly from the north to the south to minimize the effect of the projection and keep it in somewhat in line with the front property line. As for the side yard setback, the proposed is slightly beyond what is there already, which is the existing garage, which is to be demolished and rebuilt, slightly wider to accommodate a slightly above standard size vehicle and some storage, and again to accommodate some of the living space that we are proposing. Again, these would affect the depth and length of the house, which are beyond what is allowed, the depth being 0.82 beyond the proposed, and the depth slightly beyond that. I believe the length is the allowed length is 17, and we're at 19 point. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. 19 point something. With regards to item number 5, variance number 5, there's a I believe that refers to the projection beyond the front of the house. That on the south side where the garage is, the garage projects slightly beyond what's allowed, which is the by 0.42, which is the existing house, and for the proposed driveway width, I think that should address this is based on the hazardous conditions when leaving and accessing the site because of this busy stretch of the roadway. This has also been addressed previously along with residents along that stretch of that road corridor, and letters of support from Transportation Service Division is I believe is included in some of that supporting documentation in the file. During our process, we did reach out to neighbors, including those directly to the north and south, and did receive their approvals and their support. As well, we've also touched base with, we did talk to the planning department, and we had reviewed some options, perhaps to make some changes, but as after some consideration, thought that without compromising the design, any changes would be quite minor, and thus the impact would be negligible in comparison to our current proposal. I guess that would be it. For these reasons, we feel the variances are minor and the impact on the neighborhood would be minimal. And with that, I guess I would welcome your questions, and if with any questions or concerns.
Okay, can we get we have the revised, I wasn't here for the introduction, so we do have revised notes, the additional material. that variance 1 has been revised. Can you hear me or no?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. I'm not sure which one you're looking at.
No,
Variance
I'm
one.
saying the revised application, right? There was a revised application.
Yes, the application was revised. What was revised on that report was they had omitted the original zoning examiner had omitted the front yard setback. So that was, I believe. Let me just look and see which one that was. Item number. The front yard setback at 12.58. That was added later after our deferral.
Okay, I just have a note in my notes. Correct me. It just says revised notice variance 1, revised existing driveway width of 14.6. What am I looking
No,
for?
those are, Mr. Chair, those are previous decisions in the area that the applicant submitted, and he's highlighted certain things on all of them.
I see. Okay.
Similar to our revision
Apologies.
page.
Okay. So planning is looking for refusal. We have 4 letters of support, and urban forestry, condition 2. Members, any questions for Mr. Texidas, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'm ready for a motion. I disagree entirely with planning department. I think the variances requested are very minor in nature, looking at the site plan. And yeah, I'll move for approval. Variances requested are minor, subject to transportation conditions and forestry condition number 2.
Okay, yep. Thank you. Motion for approval, Mr. Palmer, seconded for that motion.
The transportation conditions will affect the variance.
Sorry, how will they affect it? Sorry.
Aren't they asking for a narrower driveway?
Right. So illustrate the dimensions of driveway.
They have a driveway width of 8.85 proposed.
If I may, it sounds like based on these comments.
Sorry, sir, we're in the middle of a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I believe that, if I recall correctly, they're using the precedent of a section of Weston Road that was approved because of existing conditions, that was approved for wider driveways, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire street should be the same. So I think there was a boundary, and I think it's listed in that transportation memo. There's a boundary, and I know that the applicant has used that as a precedent, but I believe that it's limited to a certain area.
It said here, Wilson, they said, what did it say? I saw something.
Yeah, there's something in the transportation memo. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember reading it.
Okay, what it says is that they want to explicitly illustrate the dimensions of the driveway extension, which must be a maximum of 2.4 meters in width by 4 meters in length. So that's for the turnaround portion of the driveway. That would make the driveway the extra width. So it's the way I read it, the extra width of the driveway is only for that small portion where they need the turnaround.
I agree. I think it's the hammerhead.
Yeah. So
I wonder if I can have a friendly amendment. Could we tie it to the site plan?
Yeah, let's tie it to the site plan. Yeah.
So not the transportation condition?
I'm satisfied to go with the site plan. The problem with the site plan is I understand, but transportation is saying there's no dimensions there. It's just, can we say the site plan as per scaled on the drawing? Because you can scale that hammerhead there's no dimensions to the hammerhead. It's a
No.
proposed asphalt driveway. So can we, if we just say site plan as per the site plan, then I'm assuming the hammerhead stays at the same size. Barb, is that
Can you pull up page 3 of the staff report? It's the final paragraph. We talk about it's the final paragraph, unless I'm reading it incorrectly. They're saying that yes, parts of Weston Road can have this, but this particular part of Weston Road was not included in this zoning bylaw because it was not an existing condition. I don't know, unless I'm reading it completely incorrectly.
Okay, I think maybe I misread it, then it's better to go with the conditions from transportation services.
There are 2 conditions from transportation services in their memo pertaining to the driveway on the last page of their memo. If you could pull that out and then maybe just put that in.
No, they make sense. I didn't read it correctly, sorry.
So we're saying now that we don't have to worry about transportation conditions conflicting with Mr. Palmer's motion?
Correct.
Okay, can we have that motion again then seconded, or were we there yet? Or does someone have a record of where we were 5 minutes ago?
There's a motion to approve by Neil Palmer with Forestry Condition 2, Transportation Services Condition. We need a seconder.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? I can't see, so please someone tell me.
Everyone is in favor.
Okay, perfect, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Taxidis. Okay, moving on to our last application of the afternoon, 24 Fairfield Avenue. This matter was deferred from the October 14, 2021 hearing. It's an application again to sever a lot into 2 undersized lots and to construct on each side as set out in parts 1 and 2, or applications B and C, whichever you wish. To build on each side a new detached dwelling with an attached garage with variances to the bylaw. And it looks like we got 7 in each case. Let's see if they're a mirror image of one another. We have planning and requesting a condition of approval back in October the 6th, tying it to construct as illustrated in the architectural plans regarding length and the front elevation design. We have 7 variants, including substantial lot frontage of 7.62, whereas 12 is required, and lot area. We have letters of objection, 2 letters from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. Those are the only ones we have. Heritage is looking for 4 conditions of approval, I believe. We have the economic engineering construction services, forestry, with respect to their conditions 2 and 3, and as well as we have letters of opposition. Again, as I mentioned, from the Long Branch and the conditions of approval. So community planning seems fine with this. Okay, so speaker list, we have Eddie Perez as the agent for the applicant, and now as well Andy Scholes and Stephen Vella from the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. I thought that name, Stephen spoke this morning, but I believe he spoke on his own behalf and not with respect to his address. Well, on another application, but not as ex officio as a member of the Long Branch, unless I was mistaken. Okay, so Mr. Perez, welcome. First time we've seen you this afternoon on our last application.
Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to bring to your attention that there is no Eddie Perez on my list of attendees. With that being said, there is an EKP-D that I tried to microphone check, during the process of getting microphones, and I wasn't able to confirm whether or not that was in fact Eddie. So at this time, we'll go ahead.
That should be him.
Yeah, those are his initials. So Eddie Perez is on my speakers list, and he is the principal of EKP Design.
So I'll go ahead and unmute the EKP-D attendee, and we can confirm.
Well, hi, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I'm here on behalf of the owners and the designers. This application was deferred prior because of the butternut tree in the front and transportation. So we pushed the houses forward, and by doing so, it eliminated 2 variances. We used to have 9, we now have 7. The length and the depth variances went away because of that. And we've been in constant communication with Forestry, and we've resolved the issues with the tree. And we've also sent in a revised site plan, just saying that the existing sidewalks and all that is going to be converted into soft landscaping. That was submitted the other day. And we were always ongoing with planning department. First we had a flat roof, higher houses. So we changed the design to a pitched roof. We now only have 8.5 to the top of the roof, where 9.5 meters is allowed. So we're 1 meter below the height, so it's not a tall house. The only thing we have is the height of the main walls, which we're slightly over. Where you're allowed 7, we have 7.5. And I feel that the application that we're putting before you is very minor in nature, and it meets the 4 tests. And I to hear from whatever you have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Any questions for Mr. Perez, panel members? Yeah, what did I see something around was I dreaming? Heritage? Was there something to do with heritage in this application? In the additional materials? I don't have my materials open. Okay, so what kind of heritage condition? If
It's the archaeology ones.
Oh, okay, because I know we're demolishing the house. Okay, you're okay with the condition, Mr. Perez, your client?
Yeah, well, we're okay with it, but originally that wasn't there. They just came on this submission. The first
I know.
But we're okay with it. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, we just got it. We just got it in our package yesterday of last week.
Oh,
You know, so we didn't see it either.
We're okay with it.
Okay, so now we have 2 speakers. Andy Choles from the Long Branch and Stephen Vela also from the Long Branch.
Good afternoon. My name's Andy Choles. I'm referring to a letter of objection from Christine Mercado, and the other letter from LBNA. That's the one there. My name is Andy Choles. I live at 12 Jasmine Avenue, Long Branch. I'm a board member of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. I'm here to express our concerns about the severance of the lot at 24 Fairfield and the proposed building of 2 homes, one on each of the undersized lots. These planned houses are overbuilds for these tiny lots. It has been a while since I've had to oppose a lot severance with a plan to build 2 soldier houses. I had hoped these things were in the past, but I guess not. With an FSI of 0.64, each of these homes is almost twice the allotted 0.35 FSI for the area. As is the problem with soldier houses, such a narrow lot, the only direction to build is up. It's a little disappointing to read the planning report, which seems to imply that this type of house is fairly common in the area. I'd like to put forth that this proposal does not comply with the official plan 4.15.5 and is not common in the area. Referring to the LBNA letter of objection on page 2, this map shows that the proposed lot frontage for 24 Fairfield is not prevalent on the street. The green areas represent the lots that have frontage of 12 meters or more. That is all the lots on this block of Fairfield, save some at the end of the street, 4 at the end of the street. I imagine these were 12-meter lots that were severed at an earlier date. Likewise, on page 3, shows an area or size of the lot is not prevalent on this block. Those same 4 pink lots on the end are the only lots less than the bylaw minimum of 370 meters squared. The majority of the lots are generous size with smaller houses and ample landscaping adding to the beauty of the neighborhood. The proposed home will be crowded onto the lot with limited space for soft scaping. The map on page 4 reveals the FSI is not common, even of the two smaller lots, the corner of 24th and Fairfield, measure a compliant 0.35 FSI or less. Should the build on 24 be approved, it will double the overbuilds on this block. Looking on page 5, shows the FSI of the homes one block west on Fairfield between 26th and Phlox. There seems to be more homes above the 0.3 FSI, 0.35 FSI, but they still remain in the minority. The inclusion of an integrated garage in many soldier homes often creates a home that is unnecessarily tall and looms over the road and nearby neighbors. The map on page 6 shows the inclusion of an integrated garage is not common in the immediate context on the block, and page 7 shows they are not prevalent on the next block to the west. There are more homes with parking pads in the adjacent block than integrated garages. The LBNA always prefers that the parking solution is maintained when a home is renovated or rebuilt entirely. Eliminating the integrated garage will go quite a ways to reducing the massing of the building and make it less imposing. The official plan states that no changes will be made through rezoning, minor variance, consent, or other public action that will be out of keeping with the physical character of the neighborhood. Clearly, these homes are not keeping with the physical character of the neighborhood. I believe the 4 tests refer to the immediate context of the same block and the block adjoining. These houses will be crowded onto the property. Despite some redesign to make the houses shorter, there still remains 7 variances outstanding: too tall, too close together, eaves too close to the lot line, etc. I've seen all too often when these soldier houses are going under construction, a huge hole is dug pretty much the width of both lots. It is dug big enough for the foundations of both homes. With a hole this size, it is unavoidable to dig up tree roots and threaten the green space. Previous construction done at a neighbor at 22 Fairfield has impacted a tree on at 24. I'll leave the tree arguments to my colleague. I even spotted a report in the file from Archaeology, Heritage, and Planning. Now, that was a first for me, but it might be that huge honking hole has to be dug with a shovel. It is true that the housing stock in Long Branch often needs some sort of renewal by either renovation or replacement. The LBNA is not opposed to sensible growth in the neighborhood. We do remain opposed to housing that plans that are overbuilt and plans that threaten the natural environment. We would respectfully request that this proposed build at 24 Fairfield be refused. This application does not meet the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaws, and is not in keeping with the established predominant character of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choles. Any questions for Mr. Choles? Okay, if not, the other speaker is Stephen Vella. And
Bellissimo had a question, sorry.
Sure. Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, sorry. I just, because the presenter had to make such a quick presentation, I just wanted to, can you elaborate basically on what you were saying about, sorry, I'm having feedback. Elaborate on what you're saying about the garage and the parking pads. I'm assuming you're saying that there's no solution necessarily because you don't like the overall design. But were you suggesting a proposal for dealing with parking and either a pad or a garage? I wasn't sure what you were saying there.
Generally speaking, the integrated garages are not looked favorably on by the LBNA. We prefer to preserve the present parking solution, which is, I think, a garage in the backyard or something like that. There's also parking pads on the next block. That would be another solution. The idea is the integrated garage bumps the house that much higher, and it's also empty space, which is not included in the FSI, so it increases the massing of the house.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. I just wanted to give you a bit more time to explain that more clearly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, would you like to call on Stephen Vella now?
Mr. Vella.
Hello, how are you?
And Mr. Vella, so you're here on behalf of Long Branch, you know, the typical tag team, one speaks of planning, one speaks about the trees. Is that correct, I guess?
Yes, that's correct. This morning I was speaking for Steve, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Association.
Okay.
I'm the Executive Director of the
Clarify
Bill.
for our record. I was just going to ask if on item number 20 this morning, 18 Villa, you were acting on behalf of your own as a resident or in ex officio as a member of the Long Branch Association.
As a neighbor this morning, as a neighbor, yes.
Awesome. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks so much. Go ahead. With respect, do you want anything up? I guess we have your letter up on the board.
Yes, thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Judy Gibson. She is the chair of the Tree Canopy and Preservation Enhancement Committee for the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, and this is a request for refusal. This application demonstrates why the tree canopy in Long Branch is being depleted at such an alarming rate and why this application should be refused by this committee. Of the 6 trees on the property, this application is proposing to almost completely clear-cut the lot and injure the last tree to the point where it most likely will not remain for any length of time following the build. And in return for destroying 3 protected trees, removing 2 other mature trees, and injuring a 4th, the applicant will plant at the most 2 small trees that will take decades to grow to the size of the trees that are being removed. The butternut tree that the applicant is saying that they are preserving has no tree protection in the builder's drawings. And if you can go to the next page, please. In 2019, a Master of Forestry Conservation student from U of T studied the impact of residential intensification on the urban forest in Long Branch. They looked at 40 recently severed properties in the neighborhood and found that there was a 56% tree canopy loss on the redeveloped lots and a 24% loss on the adjacent lots. Insufficient growing space is left for the tree canopy loss to never recover. As you can see that there are some statistics that they put together and shows you that the 55% and the 24% loss of the canopy because of the development. This dramatic loss in tree canopy is further confirmed by the city data released in 2020. Long Branch is the hardest hit neighborhood for tree canopy loss in all of Etobicoke, York. And Long Branch has experienced the greatest tree canopy loss of 43% in all of Ward 3 and all of Etobicoke, according to the 2018 tree canopy study conducted by the city. If you can go to the next page, please. You can see Long Branch at a loss of 43%. Even when one takes into account the standard deviation associated with the above numbers for Long Branch, it is undeniable that our neighborhood is losing tree canopy, which is contrary to the objectives that the city has set to grow the tree canopy to 40%. So the whole city they want to have at 40%. Applications such as this one that destroy mature trees and leave insufficient space for replacement trees are one of the primary reasons our tree canopy decline. How can 6 mature trees be replaced with 2 saplings? And that will have to fight with people to find a place to grow. This is some relevant planning regulations that are supposed to be followed. Protecting our neighborhoods and green space from development pressure. Protect neighborhoods' green space and the natural heritage features. Neighborhoods are low-rise and low-density residential areas and are considered to be physically stable. Development in neighborhoods will be consistent with this objective and will respect and reinforce the existing physical character of buildings, streetscapes, and open space patterns in these areas. And preserving existing mature trees wherever possible and incorporating them into the development site. Next page, please. Oops.
Watching the clock.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's good right there. We must not only protect the existing urban forest, but also enhance it. Again, removing 6 trees and replacing them with 2 saplings does not protect and enhance. Protecting Toronto's natural environment and urban forest should not be compromised by growth, intensification, and letter D, preserving and enhancing the urban forest by providing sustainable growing environments for trees, increasing tree canopy coverage and diversity, especially long-lived native and large shade trees. Now, this is very good stuff. I didn't write it, the LVNA didn't write it, the city wrote it. And nobody said it was going to be easy, but city planners need to follow their own rules. And they need to support the official plan. All the development needs to support the official plan.
Yep.
The loss of these protected trees is a result of the variances being requested, and that is what we object to. In particular, the requested lot frontage shrunk to 7.6 meters when the minimum is 12 meters. The undersized lot area of 290 square meters when the minimum required is 370 meters. And the excessive FSI of 0.64 when the maximum is 0.35. That's almost a 200% variance. This application does not meet the criteria for consent and the variances are not minor. This application fails the 4 tests. We therefore request this application be refused by the members of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I have a quick question. You mentioned several times they're going to take down 6 trees and only replace with 2 little saplings that are going to take decades, long time to build. So
20, 30, 40 years, yes.
Is the 2 trees because that's all the lot can take? I would say you should have to, whether it's on private property or public property, you have to do a, a ratio of, 5 trees to every tree you take out, or just pick a number. Where do we get to the 2 trees out of the 6? Just curious.
My understanding is that's what Forestry negotiated with the developer.
I see. And it's a question of the 2 trees, once you build on the lot, you'd have to, you build a pair of houses and you build up more of the lot. Is there just not enough room on the lot, or why shouldn't it be a one for one?
To do with it. That has a lot to do with it. That's why even when the trees get planted, like sometimes they'll plant the tree in the backyard or the front yard, but the front yards and backyards are now so small that the trees don't have anywhere to grow. And they're competing with the people that live in the property that maybe want to put a swing set up or have their kids ride their bicycles or stuff like that in the backyard. And there just isn't any room for the little tree and the children.
Okay, and you'll agree, though, a competing interest in the city is to provide more, and they call, affordable housing. So the jury said whether this is affordable housing, but the city wants more housing. So, you got trees, you got people. Every application people mention the drainage and the more hard surface. It's a battle. It's a battle. Anyway, interesting. It's our last application of the day. So, members, any questions for Mr. Bella? Or else let's go back to Mr. Perez for his rebuttal.
Hello, again, Eddie. As per Arbor's report, we have it showing all the protection. It wasn't on our plan, but the protection of the trees is on the Arbor's report. And we've been in touch with Forestry in and out, and we're proposing the trees to be at trees after, because we're removing 2 trees. Also, for the footprint of the house, we're within the length. We're at 17 meters. We're not asking for a length variance. We're not asking for overall height. So they were saying that the building is high. It's not high. You're allowed 9.5. We're only asking for 8.5. So it's not overmassing. It's not oversized. They're very modest houses. Like sometimes they have the garage and then you have a room above. This one doesn't. You have the garage. The rooms are behind. So we're not asking for anything out of the norm. There's many houses in the area. There's 43, 45, 51, and 32 Fairfield. They also have 25-foot lots. There's some on the next street, Elder. There's some on Daisy Street. There's many 25-foot lots in the area. So it's not uncommon, and it's not out of the character of the area. I feel that it meets the 4 tests, and that's my final comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perez. And I note that Urban Forestry, and like some of the other severance applications before us today, we're looking for 5, condition 5, which is a refusal or denial. They're not doing that here. This one, they're just asking for conditions 2 and 3. Any questions for Mr. Perez or the 2 of the Long Branch representatives, members, or is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Bellissimo, I have a question. Could staff put the site plan, I think it's site plan part 1, A1. I just want to get the applicant to let me know which of the trees are being removed and which one they're saving? Because the drawings are very faint here. Would you
The
be
one
able to
that's
do
being
that?
removed is, if you look at the house to your left,
Sorry, can you wait to the side? Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah,
there's-
okay.
There's one right there on to your left, the left house, right on the walkway.
Is that the
And
front?
there's, yeah, that one, and there's one at the back of the house.
The one
right
at the
beside
front is,
the
sorry,
steps
the one
there.
the one at the front is being removed?
Correct, because it's
And-
right where the
and-
walkway is.
Yes, I can see that. And which one's at the back?
There's one at the back near the steps, the back steps.
Where that one, okay, the left side, I
That's-
got
that's
that. And all the others, there's three which are being maintained then. Those are the three circles.
Yeah,
I'm
all the
seeing.
other ones are being maintained.
Those are the calipers. Okay, so at the back, the majority big ones are being maintained.
So was Mr. Vela correct when he said 6 trees are being removed and 2 being two saplings put back? Or is there less than 6? The others are being protected.
The others are being protected. Only 2 are being removed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bellissimo, you have the answer to your question?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other follow-up questions, any members, or is someone ready for a motion?
Just a comment. I've been up and down the street on Street View, and I don't, this is the prevailing character of this particular street. While there are some soldier homes on the street, I'm not really in favor of soldier homes in general. So I think there might be 4 of them in total, but it's not the prevailing character of the street. I just wanted to clarify that.
And those would be newer ones or new soldier homes or?
Yeah, they look to be relatively new,
Okay.
but I hope that I didn't approve them. That's all I can say.
Okay, members, awaiting a motion. Please don't put up your hand because I can't see. I only see Ms. Alderson and the clock.
I'm ready for a motion here. I think it's another case where the applicant hasn't presented a good enough case to justify the requests being made versus the Long Branch group, which presented a very good case on why it's inappropriate and not proper development for the area. So I'm going to move for refusal.
Okay, a motion to refuse the application. Do we have a seconder for that?
You have a seconder,
Okay, I can't see. All in favor?
Laura. Yeah.
No, I'm saying I can't see any of the other members, so.
Oh, unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Okay, application is refused. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you to the Mr. Scholes, Mr. Vela. Just point out the fact you do this work, and I assume you don't get paid for it, and the time spent from Ms. Mercado, and it's quite something. So anyway, the application has been refused, and perhaps parties can work together on a fresh application, or there's the appeal process. And now the most important motion of the day. It's 4:47. Motion to adjourn. We're done for the day.
And I'm going to second that one.
Okay, thank you. And so we're adjourned. Be well, everyone, and stay
Good
safe.
night.
Okay.
Thank you, members. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
members.
staff.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Night.
everyone. Good night.